Is that good? I feel like this is going to be good. My top of my head might be cut off though. Robocop is a sci-fi. Like, it deals with the conflict between a computer system and a human brain. It explores how it explores those two systems and how they're incompatible with each other. You can't control a computer system with the human mind, and you can't control a human mind with a computer system. They're incompatible. Especially the human mind is so unpredictable. Trying to control it to that logical of an extent is ridiculous. It goes back to my philosophy of the duality between emotion and logic. They tried to turn a human being who is the perfect embodiment of that duality and make him completely logical, and they tried to ignore the fact that he is a man underneath. And that's the sci-fi element of Robocop. But that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all the sci-fi. I'm sure there's certain weapons, sure there's certain, like, the commercials, but that's pretty much it when it comes to sci-fi. So Robocop isn't necessarily completely a sci-fi. So Robocop is a satire. But the commercials are really the only part where you see satire. And that's a testament to how good the movie is, because sure, there might be some satire in some of the plot elements of certain parts, like, oh, lose the arm, but that's more serious satire. The more comedic satire is reserved completely in the fake commercials in the movies, like the Honda Heart. That one cracked me up. But satire isn't the focus. You can have satire be an element of a movie, but it's not going to be the complete focus of it. So Robocop is an action movie. Well, now we're getting somewhere. Like the crack factory scene, Robocop absolutely blowing everyone to smithereens with his pistol, right? Robocop the robot falling down the stairs. These are action scenes that show that it's an action movie, but it shows certain plot elements. The crack factory scene is just a great action sequence. The robot falling down the stairs is a great, and that also could go into the satire thing. That cracked me up. When the robot fell down the stairs, that cracked me up. Because it showed how incompetent OCP is. So that could also go into the satire thing. The dude mutating part, forgive me for not remembering all of their names. It's been a while since I've seen the movie. But the guy mutating, I'm sorry, that had nothing to do with the movie, like, at all. So it kind of felt out of place, but it was still a crazy action sequence. That was, like, that final sequence of the guy blowing up. Like, I got him! The whole thing blows up, right? Like, and then, like, that whole final action sequence with the guy mutating, like, the final fight between Robocop and Clarence is a great sequence. And that shows you how you can have an action scene in a movie and it be enjoyable. And, Robocop is definitely a movie where you have some really good action scenes. Robocop is a movie with absolutely batshit insane action scenes. And that's just another testament to how good the movie is, where you can have batshit insane action scenes, and especially, like, the guy mutating in the vat of nuclear waste, that had nothing to do with the plot of the movie, but they still did it, and it still worked, and it was still a great action sequence. But so action is a big part of RoboCop, but the action kind of plays more into RoboCop is a drama. The death and rebirth sequence, when Alex Murphy died, that whole sequence was drawn out to a ridiculous extent, so it was like over dramatic. But then when he was reborn into RoboCop, the POV went out and came back in, and you never saw RoboCop for like the next 10 minutes. You never saw his complete form of what he looked like. So that's a dramatic thing of that I appreciated in RoboCop, where it built up suspense to, well, what does he look like now? Of course, you already know what he looks like from the front cover of the movie, but it still built suspense because you only saw glimpses of him. And the first like big dramatic piece was when RoboCop went out, and that the RoboCop theme is the greatest theme, heroic action movie theme of all time. It's the when that theme kicked in, I'm like, this is gonna be a good movie, bro. Like, it was already a good movie. I'm like, yeah, RoboCop. So, but the first real dramatic scene, part of the RoboCop's personality coming through, is something that makes RoboCop like distinctly RoboCop, like Alex Murphy's personality coming through when RoboCop's this like shell of a human being, and you still see these personality traits coming out of him from Alex Murphy, and it's just, that's really great to see, and that's what makes RoboCop a really unique character. And especially when he says the same thing that he said before, and Emil says, "We killed you," and RoboCop starts having World War II flashbacks. That was the first like dramatic scene, and they did it so well. And then the entire gas station blew up, and then he came walking out. Like, they mixed action and drama so well in this movie. Of course, when he's having the dream sequence of his death, and I'm like, he's having a dream. Like, that's something that's really interesting. They with all this technology that they're trying to implement into Alex Murphy to make him RoboCop, they still can't make him not dream. And of course, him dreaming makes him glitch out and wake up, and then he's part of his human side takes over, and then that human side goes into the robot side, and then he starts acting on the human things that he's thinking in his human mind. So it's really interesting how that works. But him rediscovering his home is about the most dramatic thing in the movie. Dramatic in a more, not dramatic in, oh my god, but dramatic in like a kind of theatrical sense of, that's the part where he finds his home and sees everything destroyed, and his memories are coming back, and it's emotional, and the fact that he can do that much emotion through just his movements and his mouth is great. But that was a great scene. That was one of my favorite scenes. And they were almost about to cut that out too, which is just a crime. It's like, no, we need to have it more action. But no, RoboCop's not an action movie. RoboCop's a drama. Showing the eye was another great thing. When the Ed 209 fell down the stairs, and I started cracking up laughing. I lost my shit with that, but that's the beginning where this movie started making me lose my shit. When that robot fell down the stairs, I cracked up laughing. but then they were shooting at Robocop, and then you saw his eye come out, and that's a very important scene, his eye showing, because at that point in the movie, he's starting to rediscover his humanity. Robocop, the story is about a guy who gets turned into a robot. The plot is about a guy the story has two parts, a plot and a theme. The plot is a guy gets turned into a robot and saves Detroit from the evil corporation OCP. That's the plot. The theme is Alex Murphy, or rather Robocop now, rediscovering his humanity. He was stripped of his humanity upon death, and he was reborn, and now once he's reborn, he needs to rediscover his humanity. At this point in the movie, when you see his eyeball, that's like a metaphor that's a metaphor that shows his progress in rediscovering his humanity. At that point, he had already started remembering who he was and trying to figure out who his family was and everything. And of course, when he unmasked, you could tell he was really getting in deep. That unmasking thing, which I'll talk about when I get to the remake, Jesus Christ. But when Lewis took off his mask for the first time, and I love how this movie limits you seeing him in every instance as much as possible. When he's first turned into a robot, it limits you from seeing him until when you fully see him. I think it's the shooting range where you might see him fully. And now when he's unmasked, you're limited from seeing him in a complete form because you're seeing the reflection of him. And then the soundtrack changes something I didn't notice when I watched the movie. The soundtrack starts out played through synthesizers, then it becomes an orchestra, and that it's clear when like the beginning of the movie, like the title sequence is very beepy boopy, and then at the end, the greatest scene in all of cinema I have seen in my life. Nice shooting, son. What's your name? Murphy. That was I lost my and then it says Robocop and does the Robocop theme. I lost my shit when that happened. I was like, best movie. But it has to be, in all seriousness, it has to be like top five movies. It's a sci-fi setting with satire, but what it is a action movie with drama. So is it a sci-fi? Yeah, it's a sci-fi setting. Is it a satire? Yeah, it has satire elements. Is it an action movie? Definitely, it has action sequences. Is it a drama? Definitely. But you know what RoboCop is really? RoboCop is awesome. S tier. Then, after watching RoboCop, I finished the trilogy and then went on to the animated series. The animated series they made right after RoboCop 1. So I'm going to talk about it now instead of waiting till after I'm going to talk about it in chronological order of when they were released, not chronological order of when I watched it. So I watched RoboCop, then 2 and 3, then I went to the animated series. So this is the RoboCop animated series, 1988. The first episode is a fine representation of how low-effort automation can lead to disaster. That's Crime Wave. The second episode, The Scrambler, The fact that Robocop can get hacked because this dumb Dr. Tyler left the password on the screen is retarded. But Robocop being controlled against his will is an interesting idea. It was just executed weirdly because the fact that Robocop can get hacked because this bitch left the password on the screen. What? It's like Robocop is not a... should not have an IP address. Robocop should not, like, be a computer. He's a machine. Project Death Spore is when Robocop when this show remembers that it's a sci-fi. However, it's a biological monster. The biology side really isn't related. The sci-fi is about computer sci-fi, not necessarily biology sci-fi, but still, it's a nice sci-fi episode. But it's a giant blob. It's a giant green blob. I don't know how that relates to Robocop. Episode 4, The Brotherhood. Honestly, very interesting group of villains for Robocop. It's a good development of the story of the Robocop universe. And it's a good commentary on society's fear of robots. More of a public commentary rather than a personal commentary like the movie was. And it's like a more societal take on like the Brotherhood of the Flesh. They want to kill all robots, and it brings out some robot racism within some of the characters, and it's pretty interesting. And it's a kids show, keep in mind. Episode 5, The Man in the Iron Suit. Hitchcock, who hates Robocop, takes the opportunity to try to destroy him with a giant mech suit. At the end, they destroy the footage because it showed Robocop almost losing it. This tells a nice commentary about how the public's view and opinions can sway the outcomes of other people's jobs, which is a very mature message for a kid show. It's a video that shows what looks like to be police brutality from one angle, but turns out to be fine in reality, which causes the policeman to wrongly lose his job. Which is something that happens in real life, so they destroyed the tape so that wouldn't happen. The episode itself wasn't anything special, but the ending is another great example of how this show shows commentary on society, just like the movie, while also being a kid's show, which is pretty impressive. Episode 6 is The Hot Seat. This one's a doozy, meh. The episode focuses on stealing Robocop's charging chair, because apparently Robocop needs to be charged like once every 2 hours or else he'll run out of battery, which has never been a problem in any other Robocop show. Has never been a problem before. However, to make the stakes high enough, you have to just create the problem. But, you know, it's a kid's cartoon. Who cares? Episode 7, No News is Good News. This episode is just Dr. McNamara's evil robot creations trying to destroy Robocop. That's nothing special here. Episode 8, Night of the Archer. This episode features Robin Hood. No, really. It has absolutely nothing to do with Robocop except for the fact that he breaks the law to supply the poor with goods they don't have. It's an interesting dilemma for Robocop because the people view Archer as a hero. Does Robocop do the right thing and arrest the criminal? Or does he let him continue in fear of looking like the villain? I really like that dilemma, but it was ruined by the Archer actually having nefarious plans. Like some episode of Scooby-Doo, he was revealed to be some other character we were only introduced to in this episode. Episode 9, Rumble in Old Detroit. This episode tells the story of the sergeant's nephew getting caught up in a gang. Everything turns out okay, but the nephew's name is Dirk. What kind of name is that? It's like It's like, no wonder he wanted to join a gang. You named him a name that is one letter off from dork. He probably got made fun of too much in school, and then the gang is like, hey, my name's Pizbrain. Oh yeah, my friend's name is Jork. Oh yeah, and then my brother's name, my sister's name is Bish. It's like, no wonder he joined a gang. Episode 10, A Robot's Revenge. This episode tells the story of two prince ambassadors from two different Middle Eastern countries, and they're arguing over oil trucks. So yeah, there's some politics involved with a third country being in between the two or something, and there's an assassin from one of the countries trying to kill the other one to make it seem like they're at war. Blah, 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 blah. I really don't give a shit. The best part of the episode is at the end when it ends. No, the best part of the episode is at the end. The prince convinces Lewis to come over and be the princess, but then she finds out that he has like 15 other wives, and she's like, no, I'm good. But she was actually going to go with him. Like, she actually fell in love with the dude. I wouldn't fall in love with him. I don't like Middle Eastern people. No, it's not that I'm not gay. I'm just racist. Episode 11, Into the Wilderness. Robocop gets lost in the wilderness and is saved by an environmental biologist. Robocop helps her save wilderness from OCP. Yay! Episode 12, Menace of the Mind. This episode is about evil mind-controlling chips in necklaces, I think, that help you do homework, but they control your mind. I don't really care. Anyway, the bad guy turns out to be Clarence Bodiger from the movie, who is arrested instead of killed. So this entire show is basically the beginning part of RoboCop, and then the rest of the movie. So it's basically like a longer form of the movie story, just with other stuff happening, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, it's a nice ending for the series because it's a nice ending because it actually finishes a story. Okay, closing thoughts for this animated series. Overall, I think it's a fine cartoon that keeps the themes of societal commentary from the movie. I'd let my kids watch this. I think that when we let our kids watch shows, we should, especially kids shows like this that have like metaphorical societal commentary, we should teach them to kind of understand the commentary of that, which might be hard because kids have zero IQ, but kids are smarter than we think they are. And I think when we teach them this, when we let them watch kids shows, we should let them watch more intellectual kid shows instead of like, let your kids watch RoboCop the animated series and not a kid show like Umi Zoomies. Like, actually Umi Zoomies teaches you math. What kid show nowadays is shit? Paw Patrol. Let your kids watch shows like RoboCop the animated series that actually have societal commentary before you let them watch Paw Patrol. For fuck's sake. The animated series I would give a C tier because it's not complete good. Like, it has some stuff that brings it down. Alright, RoboCop 2. RoboCop's voice is back to robotic, which kind of defeats the purpose of the entire thematic progression of the last film. He acts like a robot again for the commercial appeal of RoboCop being a robot without taking into account the chronological and thematic progression of him regaining his humanity. Oh, there's a main plot with Robocane, which is fine. That's a great plot to have for, the first one talks about evil corporations. This one talks about drugs. That's fine. RoboCop's suit looks beautiful. Like, bluish. It's perfect. The action when fighting Robocane is fucking bombastic compared to the original movie. Like, the original movie had great action scenes. But, I mean, you got Robocop at the top of a skyscraper, falling down under the city, messing with pipes. And then he rips out his brain. Like, holy shit. like it's more bombastic. There's higher stakes and everything. It's not just a personal metaphorical movie. It's a big old hero versus villain story, which, of course, the original RoboCop movie, because it's such a dramatic, thematic movie, it's, of course, going to be better than the RoboCop 2. But RoboCop 2 is just a great RoboCop movie. But the first RoboCop, perfect, masterpiece. Like, it's... RoboCop 2 is a good movie, but it can't compare to the original. But other than that, it feels like you got a bunch of different ideas and smushed them together. To me, that's what brings the movie down. RoboCop's wife is in there for like 2 seconds, and RoboCop tells her that he's dead, which would be emotional if there was any kind of, like, if that was central to the plot, it would be great. A great moment, but it's not, so it just kind of happened. RoboCop being taken apart and reprogrammed, again, would have been dramatic if it was more central to the plot, but it just kind of happened, and RoboCop got taken apart. I do like the fact that he had a family-friendly amount of laws, which is more relevant today than ever with political correctness. That's a great societal commentary in the movie. However, him having to electrocute himself to cure the family-friendly political correctness prime directives in himself, him having to electrocute himself, that just, he just said, fuck it, I'm zapping myself, and he's cured. Like, that's just kind of, again, it just kind of happened. When he said, no prime directives detected, that was cool, but in the third movie, they didn't follow up on it. It said no prime directives detected. That means, if you watch the second movie, it says no prime direct, after he electrocutes himself, it says no prime directives detected. In the third movie, he has the 4 prime directives. What, like... They just forgot about it. And you know why they forgot about it? Because it was not central to the plot. And also RoboCop 3's complete shit. But we'll get to that. They forgot about it because it wasn't central to the plot. But the final line where RoboCop says, "Patience, Lois." I keep on saying Lois. "Patience, Lois. We're only human." That's a cool. RoboCop's final lines in the trilogies are cool. They definitely, the first one's the best one, best ending to any movie ever. But the final line of RoboCop 2 is pretty cool. Definitely plays into the theme of RoboCop becoming more human because he has completely accepted his humanity. I'm not sure that he's completely accepted the fact that he's still Alex Murphy. I don't think he's still Alex Murphy anymore. I think he's a different man. But he definitely has Alex Murphy's personality in him, as well as being RoboCop. So I think that's cool. Overall, it's a great movie, but doesn't come anywhere close to being the masterpiece of the first one. A tier. It took them 2 years from RoboCop 1 to make RoboCop 2, and they made a TV show as well. Then it took them 3 years, no TV show, to make RoboCop 3. RoboCop 3 gets a lot of hate because people are going into it expecting it to be a worthy follow-up of the second one. It isn't a worthy follow-up to My Hairy Asshole. I came into it having already heard it was bad, so it was just enjoyable. More for me laughing at it because it's complete garbage movie than it being a good movie, which it isn't. So, what I think is the biggest problem about this movie is the fact that it's PG-13, obviously, but they made RoboCop too robotic. This becomes a problem in later RoboCop movies, other than the remake. They made RoboCop too robotic to the point where he cannot move like a normal human being. When he is fighting the two ninja robots at the end, he has to rely on this little girl to hack their brains because he can't move as quick as they in the fight. He was running down, he was beelining it down the stairs, doing barrel rolls under bridges in the first movie. He was fighting from the top of a skyscraper down, fist fighting this giant robo cane, rips out his brain. But no, in the third movie, he can't move worth shit. So, that's a big problem in Robocop 3. This is also the start of making Robocop, it goes into this, but this is also the start of Robocop making Robocop extremely weak for the point of drama. Robocop falls from a skyscraper in the second movie, busts through the concrete into the pipes underground. Robocop gets a metal stake or whatever, stabbed into him. Metal construction equipment falls onto him. But he gets a grenade thrown at him and he almost dies. Come on, man. Lewis's death, spoiler alert, Lewis's death was the most anticlimactic death I've seen in a movie. I even got a spoiler from it. That Lewis dies in the third movie. Lewis's death in the third movie on YouTube, the clip of Robocop 3. The most anticlimactic death in a movie I've seen in my life. Like, she just, get him for me. Like, this movie is like, they got Robocop, they're like, Robocop, we ain't got another idea, let's just make it complete shit. Like, cheese. Like, it's just complete cheese. Okay. One thing that made me crack up, one thing that made me bust my ass laughing, was the scene where Bertha dies. Spoiler alert, don't even give a spoiler alert for, this is the greatest scene in Robocop 3. I just have to show it to you. It's like how absolutely horrible the acting is in this movie. It's just absurd. Just watch the scene. I don't care if I get copyrighted. Just watch it. So this movie is bad. That's an understatement. Calling this movie bad is an understatement, but it's enjoyable. It's like what Moist Critical says about I like fun shitty movies. Fun shitty movies are great. Robocop is definitely a fun shitty movie. But you have to go into it if you want to enjoy it. You have to go into it. You have to go into it knowing that it's horrible. So for that, I wouldn't say it ruins Robocop because at least it's still enjoyable. It's not boring. But it's like they said, all right, Robocop is PG-13 now. We're just going to make it complete stupidity and cheese. I don't think they did that on purpose, but that's what it seems like to me. They just said, all right, Robocop's stupid now. Let's just go with it. Let's just make him stupid. Definitely not the worst Robocop thing. There are some good moments, such as the final battle where Robocop is flying with his jetpack. The fact that Robocop has a jetpack is pretty cool anyway. All the policemen leaving and going on strike finally is cool to make it a trilogy. And in a way, this series does complete the trilogy of OCP. So, C tier. It's not complete garbage. So if the garbage was taken out, it would be like A tier. But it's not. The garbage is in there. It brings it down. But I still enjoyed it, so it's C tier. Robocop, the TV series. So, because of Robocop 3, this TV series continues down the line of PG-13. Not once in this show does Robocop kill people. And this is the most corniest. This is the most corniest RoboCop has ever been in live action. I originally watched this series on Prime, and the last 2 episodes were out of order, but I wouldn't recommend watching it on Prime anyway, because now even more episodes are out of order. They're not named correctly. It's honestly, buy the DVD. Just buy the DVD set. It'll be the best way to watch it. I mean, if you don't care that some episodes are out of order, that's fine, but you get to the point where there's 2 episodes that are one's a direct sequel of the last one, and they're in reverse order now. So whatever. But the pilot, episode 1 and 2, the future of law enforcement. This was apparently based on the original script for RoboCop 2, which is nowhere. Some people say the guy who wrote it said it's better than RoboCop 2. No, it's not. RoboCop 2 is a great movie. It's nowhere near as good as RoboCop 2. I mean, this TV show is it's 4:3. I watched it 16:9 cropped, so you could tell it was cropped. And then the TV fuzz on it is just and then it's not as a solid movie as you can tell it's TV quality overall. So it's not as good as RoboCop 2, but thematically, especially with RoboCop's family, it's a better thematic movie piece as a sequel to RoboCop 1, because it includes RoboCop's family as a better thematic central point than RoboCop 2 did. I mean, RoboCop 2 just said, "Oh, come back home with me. Murphy's dead." Like that, it's just stupid. It was stupid. So RoboCop 2 is better as a general movie, but this pilot is better thematically. Neurobrain was interesting and brought in a new recurring character, so that was pretty cool. The end of the episode involves an orphan girl being adopted by the sergeant, who this sergeant is a really cool character, just like the sergeant was in the first 3 movies. But since this series, you see more of him. I'm more connected now because to this sergeant in this show than I was in the first movie, just because you see more of him. Although the sergeant in the original series, the movie series, was a great character still, but I like this one too. He's easily my favorite character in this show. Episode 3, Prime Suspect, if you count pilot as 2 episodes. Prime Suspect. Someone uses a prototype of RoboCop's gun to kill someone to frame RoboCop. It's a really interesting idea, and I think it was executed well, although RoboCop kind of acts really weird in this episode. Like, he stops, there's a bunch of policemen around him trying to stop him, and then he drives off into the water. He was just acting really weird. I didn't understand that. Episode 4, Trouble in Delta City. This episode involves drugs. Episode 5, Officer Missing. The chairman in this series is very different than the old man from the movies. I actually appreciate that, because in the first movie, he wasn't a bad guy. He wasn't a horrible guy. He wasn't a good guy either, but he wasn't a bad guy in the first movie. But in 2 and 3, he's actually the villain. In this series, they make him a really good guy, and he goes through a nice character arc in this episode about realizing what the working class have to go through in the poor areas during crimes. The chairman and RoboCop meet a poor family with a boy who needs a lung transplant. It has some nice character moments for RoboCop as this kid reflects his son. This is my favorite episode of the series. Easily. Episode 6, What Money Can't Buy. So this is the episode that's a sequel to the last one, and on Prime they were in reverse episode. So, the chairman finally gets around to paying for this kid's lung transplant, and the lungs get stolen and the kid dies. Haha, just kidding. No, the kid lives, But this is a really interesting direct sequel to the last episode because it number one, it ties the story up nicely, but it shows this really unexpected way of tying it to the last episode. It's kind of interesting, actually. Episode 7, Ghosts of War. A band of war veterans suffering from extremely exaggerated PTSD begin terrorizing the city. One of them happens to be Robocop's friend, which leads to some good character moments for Robocop. Nice episode. Episode 8, Zone 5. This episode involves a gang of criminals that are led by this dude dressed like a pilgrim that talks all fancy like he's from the 1700s. It's really weird. These criminals are funded by OCP to be a more law enforcement that are less strict from the police, which is the worst idea, but OCP is full of bad ideas. They made Ed 209. It's weird, but it involves programming another directive into Robocop. It's not really a directive, it's a rule, but it forces him not to cross into the new district. But this is all just solved anyway by the chairman being like, I press a button, override with his fingerprint or whatever. Whoa, crazy ending. So they're really weird villains, but it's an okay episode. Episode 9, Provision 22. Robocop's wife and son are on welfare. Just get that through your head, I guess, because Robocop. This show deals with gender equality so fucking weird. This episode, since Murphy can't make the money for them, Robocop's wife and son are on welfare now. And there's also a law that prevents people on welfare from working. So Robocop's wife is working illegally. What? It's such a weird concept. Whatever. I don't care. Faces. That one was weird. This one's called Faces of Eve. So, episode 10. So there's this recurring villain named Pudface Morgan. He looks like a blobfish. He has nothing to do with Robocop. He looks like a blobfish. So to get rid of his ugliness, he steals this product that can use gene transplant therapy to change the appearance of your face, but it doesn't change your voice. Anyway, episode 11. When justice fails, people want to assassinate some rich lady. They try to hide this disc with evidence on it in a cryogenic liquid nitrogen chamber. I don't know. I don't even know what this episode is anymore. It's been so long since I've seen this. Episode 12, The Human Factor. Robocop teams up with his dad to stop a bomber. This leads to some really good character moments with Robocop, who still has to keep a secret that he is his son. Episode 13, Inside Crime. A reality TV show about crime that actually causes the crimes that they record to get ratings for their show. Wow, how original. Episode 14, Robocop versus Commander Cash. So, Commander Cash is a fake commercial that plays at the beginning of every episode. It kind of calls back to the first movie's satire commercials. But now, an actual person calling himself Commander Cash from the commercials. So, Commander Cash starts going around and starts influencing the mind of children with this cereal that has hypnotizing chemicals in it to make the kids take the subliminal messages in the Commander Cash commercials to make them do everything Commander Cash says. So then he goes around into stores and tells all the kids that everything's free. So then the kids listen to him and take everything. And the chemical that's in this cereal that hypnotizes them actually is dormant and doesn't activate until it's combined with like vitamin B or calcium or whatever in the milk. And then there's this crazy thing about Commander Cash's origin story. So it's corny, because this show is just all types of corny. But it is so in-depth and there's so much effort behind the plot. It's like a supervillain plot. It's just, it's really interesting. Episode 15, Illusions. This episode involves a magician that does magic tricks that literally cannot be explained at all in reality because they're literally actually just effects. Like, he disappears, smoke. No absolute explainable way in real life that could ever happen. But in the movie, it's like, oh, he's a magician. Haha, magicians never really reveal their secrets, except he's actually just using straight up black magic. The plot is okay. It involves an assassination attempt that distracts. It's a distraction to kill Robocop in a car test, but he never actually died. I don't care. Episode 16, The Tin Man. Robocop's ex-partner returns as a vigilante, mind-controlled by some other criminal gang. I don't care. Robocop 17, Sisters in Crime. This show has a really weird way of tackling sexism and gender equality. It's really weird and contradicting, and it's like they try to do something that has a message behind it, but it doesn't get through. It's not expressed well at all. The OCP chairman does nothing that is sexist in the entire show. Absolutely no character is sexist. No male character in this show is sexist at all. But then this radical group of feminists kidnap the OCP chairman and make him do housework. So, of course, they're seen as criminals and they're locked up. But then Madigan, who is Lewis in this show, agrees with their points and says that some of the men in the show need to be aware of their sexist viewpoints. But it's like completely any sane human being could see that none of the men in the show are sexist except for these radical feminists who are sexist. It's like she's explaining to the protagonist men in the show that are not sexist to stop being sexist because of the radical feminists. It's such a weird way to tackle sexism. Like, they don't get anything across. Robocop tackling feminism is they don't do it right. They don't do it right. Episode 18, Heartbreakers. So the character from the Neurobrain is a helping hand throughout the series. She's a really cool character. And the doctor that tends to Robocop, the doctor that helps Robocop, falls in love with her, and it's kind of cute. This corny stuff in the show reminds me of like some really corny endings to Star Trek episodes, but on a whole nother level corny. It's like, this was a really corny episode. There were some episodes where when they ended, I was like, whoa, that was corny. Like, I can taste the cheese in my mouth right now, and it's not the easy cheese I'm eating. Episode 19, Mother's Day. So Gadget, which is the orphan girl, wants to meet her real mother so bad that she leaves the sergeant. But her mother is not actually her mother and is a criminal pretending to be her mother. It's weird, but at the end, they do a DNA test and it's actually her mother. But she goes back to Sergeant Parks anyway, and they don't actually tell her. It's a nice emotional episode, but Gadget is stupid. Episode 20, Nano. Madigan, who replaces Lewis in this show. Madigan is tricked into criminals and falling off a building and paralyzes herself. These criminals stole the whole work of some scientists developing nanotechnology. They catch the criminals at the end and they use the nanotechnology to repair Madigan's spine so she can walk again. But when she's first paralyzed, she wakes up in this iron lung. And she starts crying and screaming and says she can't move. What's happening? What's happening? And her acting is so good, it got me stressed out. And I know it's fake. Like, you know it's fake. But her acting was so good that to see her, like, in this distressed state and screaming and crying, and then they had to put her to sleep. It was a really emotionally powerful episode. This series does a lot. It might be corny, but it does a lot of emotional stuff really well, and I like it. They just kind of showed her at the end, whoa, she can walk again. They repaired her spine with the nanotechnology. When I would have liked to see them actually making that a plot point in the show instead of just the ending. But anyway, episode 21, Corporate Raiders. I don't even care what the plot is of this episode because it involves a woman with a robotic hand and her middle finger is like Robocop's data spike, but every time she sticks it in a hole, she moans like she's having an orgasm. She literally said, "Oh, just like the first time." And it's like, ugh, stop. Like, it just makes me so uncomfortable. Like, ew. Episode 22, Midnight -1. Robocop and Officer Madigan save an innocent killer before he's executed on a television show where they execute criminals, which they made this entire show. This is episode 1. They made this entire show just to get money off of executing this criminal who never actually did what they screwed with his brain. The plot involves Robocop's dad, who finally finds out who he is, which leads to a great character moment between the two of them, and was like a cathartic release of emotions for me for finally seeing Robocop reunite with one of his family members. This episode was swapped with the finale, which honestly, I think this works better as a finale for having higher stakes and is a better thematic ending for Robocop's character arc. So I think it was a better finale anyway. But the real finale, episode 23, or 22, depending on how you look at the pilot. Public Enemies. All of the recurring criminal enemies from the show come together to assassinate the president, who is a woman. In every single movie and TV show and everything, Robocop has, in that Robocop's version of America, they have a female president. Like, okay. But they make it like a big deal. It's a female president. Like, okay. It's not really that big of a deal. Maybe it was back then, but the fact that they try to make it a big deal, there's big, like the way they do the camera, Mr. President, and it's this dude, but it's not actually the dude's just the president's husband. Like, whoa, female president, so crazy. And they don't even, have any messages about that. There's no, struggle against sexism. They just show female president, what? And it's stupid. They don't make anything, that's what I'm saying, they don't make anything meaningful about why it's a female president. They just show it as a female president, and then it's, supposed to be a big deal. It's obvious they make it as a big deal that it's a female president, but there's no plot relevance, there's no thematic relevance, there's no, inter-societal commentary reference. It's just the societal commentary reference is, hey, look at the gender of this person. It's like that, it's not impressive. But all of the recurring villains from this show get locked up in the last episode, in this episode. No shit. But all of the recurring villains of this show get locked up in this episode. It's a better plot finale rather than a thematic finale. Which I think is this makes it a better finale, now that I think about it, as how you structure a show. The plot, it ties up all loose ends of the plot. Whereas the previous episode tied up the theme, the thematic plot, the thematic story. But closing thoughts on the TV series. Do I think there should have been a season 2? As wholesome and as good as some of these episodes were, there were some really corny, cheesy episodes that made me cringe. The good episodes did as much as they could with RoboCop, and I would have found it very impressive if they continued to come up with good episode ideas in season 2. I feel like season 2 would have been cornier because of the amount of ideas they would run out of. So I think having only one season for this show is completely fine. It didn't do anything grandiose with RoboCop, but there are some really special moments in it. B tier. RoboCop Alpha Commando. I'm going to be real with you, this show is enjoyable to me, but for all the wrong reasons. Everything that comes out of RoboCop's mouth is the most whack shit I have ever heard in my life. The first thing that he utters in this show, once he's released from a cryogenic time chamber, is, "Who's the babe?"
Hello, Dr. Newmeyer. Who's the babe?
This babe is a special agent with Division Alpha.
Okay, episode 1, 2, and 3 is Justice Reborn Part 1, 2, and 3. I don't even know what happened in this episode, and I didn't know what was happening while I was watching it. There was some dude trying to assassinate the president. The animation style isn't that bad. It's just the writing is awful. In this episode there was some ambassador from another country where in his culture it's offensive to itch your left ear because it means you offended his sister or whatever. And it's such a weird thing, but it does this thing that I like about comedians where some comedians like Dave Chappelle or something or people like that or Ricky Gervais or whatever, they introduce some stupid thing that makes no sense, but they keep referencing it throughout the entire show. Like Clifford of Dave Chappelle's Closer. That shit was funny. This itch in your left ear, they keep bringing it up, and then once he actually do it, you don't even think anything of it, and he's like, you offended my sister. And it's damn, we're halfway across the room. And he gets up and leaves. So it's kind of funny, but I mean, it's, Episode 4's Doppelganger. A biologist clones Murphy and transfers his consciousness into his new body, which ages too quickly, so then he turns into an old man by the end of the... I don't fucking care anymore. Episode 5, Town of... Whoa. Whoa, my ear just... I felt my eardrum reset itself. What the... Okay. Anyway. Man, my bowels are fucked up, man. Bitch. Okay. Alright, I'll just continue. Episode 5, Town of Tomorrow. I don't even feel like explaining the plot because at the end of the episode, we fight off against a giant Trojan robot piloted by a midget in a toga. Episode 6, Cyberfaggin. I'll say that again. Episode 6 is called Cyberfaggin. A faggin is an adult who instructs children in crime. Besides the slightly alarming episode title, there's an interesting scene where one of the children gets mind-controlled inside of a robot, but they're playing laser tag at the beginning, so he does the same technique. He does this technique while he's playing laser tag, where he throws the gun up and catches it behind his back. And when he gets turned into a robot, he does that technique, so that's how they know it, that's a cool reference to the original movie. Episode 7, Plague on Ice. This episode is about a virus from an asteroid that landed in Antarctica. I wonder where they got this idea from. Episode 8, Robo Racer. This episode involves a very cocky racer, but I don't care about that because what I care about is the fact that there was a tank in the episode that shot nets.
Glue launcher.
Which that cracked me up. So episode 9, the Herminator. This guy has shape-shifting nanotechnology. So he's like a super villain, calls himself the Herminator. He has extreme buck teeth. I mean, like Timmy Turner would be jealous of him. SpongeBob, jealous of him. This dude, all the way down, like past his chin. It's freaking crazy. Episode 10, Robocop. This random kid lies about being Robocop's son and gets agents from Dark sent to him. Dark is this evil crime syndicate thing that stands for destruction, anarchy, revenge, and chaos. And the moment I heard that Dark was a anagram or whatever, I knew that they would replace the K with the C just to make it edgy. And they did. And the destruction, anarchy, revenge, and chaos. It's just, ooh, they're evil. Episode 11, The Weakest Link. The scientist in this show is Professor Cornelius Neumeier. I'm guessing his last name is a reference to the screenwriter of the original movie, Edward Neumeier. His name is bad enough, and then they have to give him the nickname Noomy. However, the names get worse because this episode involves a woman from Cornelius Neumeier's past named Charlotta Tannenbaum. Hey man, I don't know what they were they had to be on drugs when they made this show. I'm just saying, this show is so freaking weird. She is a complete manipulative, snarky bitch, but Neumeier falls in love with her, and at the end she gets locked up, and he says he'll wait for her. Yeah. Episode 12, Really, Really Big Shoe. Shoe spelled S-H-O-O. I don't understand the title of that one, but the episode is about a reality TV show that actually causes the crime to get ratings. How original. Episode 13, A Pretty Girl is Like a Milady. I don't understand the title of this episode either. Okay, the episode involves a virus that infects people, except the only character that has a cold, and also Robocop because he's half cyborg, so it half affects him. So he acts goofy the whole episode. This leads to the absolute most whack shit I have heard come out of Robocop's mouth. And Robocop already says some whack shit in this show. So when he is high off this virus, he says, I cannot describe in words.
Robo?
Look, Miner, I'm a crab. I can walk on my hands. Scissors.
Look, Mommy, I do a caterpillar.
Francesca's Quest. This episode involves a female Robocop named Francesca, who I couldn't give less of a shit about. At the end, Robocop helps her gain control of her body. Yay. Episode 15, Power Play. This episode involves a dude who is controlling a satellite invented by Neumeier and repurposing it for a death ray to show that technology is bad because he thinks that we should all go back to being in harmony with nature. There's got to be some serious cognitive dissonance in this motherfucker's brain. Because how are you going to use technology to say that technology's bad? Because you're the reason that it was bad in the first place. Episode 16, Deep Trouble, some underwater shit with a pirate in a submarine. I don't care. Episode 17, Max Op 4, I really don't care. It's about some prison or something. Episode 18, Oh, Tannenbaum, whoa, Tannenbaum. So Tannenbaum returns to destroy Christmas because she is angry that everyone makes fun of her last name for being German for Christmas tree. It involves a fight on an extremely oversized Santa float. It involves a fight on an extremely oversized Santa float that is flying in the sky. I felt like I was having a fever dream when I was watching this. Episode 19 will always have pairs. Robocop wanted Newmeyer to adjust his emotion settings, but he adjusted them too far. So Robocop is overly emotional the entire episode, which sucks because it involves trying to find his long-lost forgotten love when he traveled to Paris before he got married. It's cool to have a gimmick for this episode because otherwise it would be boring. Episode 20, Best Friends. I have no idea what the title of this episode has to do with a supervillain that constantly wants to absorb electricity from electronic objects who has two robot henchmen that eat batteries. Are you starting to understand why this show made me lose my sanity? This dude's name is Dr. Volt. This is so creative, like next level genius levels of creative. His name is Dr. Volt because he's electric. Whoa! Episode 21, Garden of Evil. This episode involves a man who has fused himself with a plant and can psychically control plant life. His name is Dr. Mulch. This is so creative. He has an assistant named Kudzu Bodine. What are these names? Who at the end of the episode is encouraged to go to college and become a secret agent like Robocop and Agent Minor. Episode 22, Robo-Dog. A dog becomes a robo. Next episode. Episode 23, Brawl in the Family. Some cringe-ass TV show for kids run by this dude So what I wrote here was some cringe-ass TV show for kids run by this dude I don't fucking care anymore. I really don't. It's some family altercation cliche bullcrap I don't know. That's actually what I typed. Episode 24, Cop Games. Oh no, a training competition with cops and androids that go completely wrong. What? Episode 25, H2 uh-oh. A supervillain turns herself into water. Newmeyer accidentally turns himself into water, but he is yellow. They fight and Newmeyer wins. Episode 26, Inside Out. They meet the leader of their secret organization that they're a part of. Whoa. Episode 27, The Erg and I. The Erg, spelled E-R-G, is a sentient bundle of cables. So they do have an interesting rogues gallery. I will give them that. They're creating a very interesting rogues gallery for Robocop. That I wouldn't mind seeing a Robocop 4 where Robocop battles the Erg, because he's a pretty interesting villain. Episode 28, Survival of the Fittest. The biologist from the episode where she cloned Robocop, she returns to make this abomination monster in a volcano. I don't know, but there's this one scene. It's an animation. I don't know if it's an animation mistake or they purposely made her eyes like that for no reason because it's funny. She's cross-eyed. In one scene, she is completely cross-eyed. It's hilarious. Episode 29, While You Were Sleeping. A bunch of crap happens while Robocop is asleep, and there's a plot twist at the end that I don't care about. Episode 30, Return of the Herminator. The buck-teeth motherfucker returns, and he's a good guy now. Whoop-de-poo. Episode 31 and 32, Family Reunion Part 1 and 2. Robocop finally reunites with his wife and son, who haven't aged in the 10 years he was in the cryogenic chamber, but he still can't tell them who he is. At the end of the episode, Robocop drops a giant monitor on the leader of Dark, but when they lift the monitor, he disappears, and all that's left is his cyborg arm. So you're like, what? What's going on? So then episode 33, Small Packages. Robocop has to go on a magic school bus field trip inside of Sergeant Reed to stop some nanobots. Episode 34, Head Games. This episode is interesting because Robocop and Agent Minor actually go on an offensive mission to collect information about Dark instead of stopping an enemy sent by Dark. So they actually go on the offensive, which is interesting. Episode 35, Dark Secrets. There's no plot to this episode because it contains various flashbacks to previous episodes. So this is a recap episode, but I don't know why, because it's not like this is the first episode of the second season. This is the 35th episode of the series. I have two possibilities. One, this might have been either the last episode of the season or the first episode of the next season originally, before they made all of this one season. Or they had a contract for 40 episodes and they ran out of ideas, so they had to just make up a recap episode. I don't know, but this one's just skip it. It's filler. It literally is filler on a show that is literally made out of filler. Episode 36. Thank you very much. Mulch returns, and Bodine is now a secret agent, which is the most badass return of a character I've seen in this show. It was actually really impressive that they completed her character arc like that. Like, she said, so, oh, I'll become a secret agent like you. And I'm like, yeah, right. And then she actually returns in an episode. And I was like, that's actually kind of impressive, especially for this show, because this show is like, I don't even know. Episode 37, Father's Day. Agent Minor's son discovers that his father is also a secret agent, but that defeats the moral of this episode. See, Agent Minor's son doesn't want to hang out with his dad because he thinks he's boring. But the only reason he likes to hang out with his dad at the end of the episode is not because he bonded with him, but because he's just actually not boring. So you missed the mark on that. It's like Robocop trying to tackle sexism, feminism. You tried to tackle Father's Day and it didn't work. Episode 38. They meet a race of underground Neanderthals who are upset and offended by the surface people for dumping waste into their caves. You can't make this shit up, folks. Episode 39, Das Reboot. Francesca comes back and gets married, but her groom is evil or something, I don't care. Episode 40, Talk About the Weather. Guy controls weather and gets caught. The end. So, overall thoughts for this Crime Against Humanity. First off, the intro is annoying at first, but then it gets stuck in your head. It's literally just singing Robocop, Robocop, boop-a-doo-doo, Robo. It's just that's the entire intro for a minute. This opening is a minute long of just Robocop, boop-a-doo-doo, why? Overall, this show has more sci-fi elements that have to do with Robocop than the original animated series, which is pretty cool. I am actually very impressed at the level of ideas that they came up with, regardless of how boring or cliche some of them were. But the writing and comedy was beneath me. Watching this became like a chore at the end of the story, and the story never came to an end. So I think they were planning on making a second season to this. Which is absolutely bonkers because this was 40 goddamn episodes. You think they would be able to wrap up an overarching story in 40 freaking episodes. But the shit that rolled out of Robocop's mouth and the wacky situations they got themselves into were just enough to make this somewhat enjoyable. But overall, it's pretty low quality, and I would not recommend this unless you're yearning for the most shittiest cartoon you've ever seen in your life besides Velma. But Velma was actual shit. This is enjoyably shit. D tier. I lost my sanity while watching this show. I gotta be real with you. Okay, Robocop Prime Directives. This is a 4-episode miniseries. Each episode is an hour and a half, so it's basically like a gigantic 6-hour movie. So the first episode's called Dark Justice, and it introduces this theme. First off, it introduces this guy named Cable, which is Robocop's partner. It takes place in like after Robocop 3. New Detroit is like destroyed and disheveled. And Robocop is in this other county or whatever. Or other district, I should say. And Robocop is like basically reunites with his partner. Before Alex Murphy got transferred to New Detroit, Cable was Robocop's partner. So he reunites with Cable, and it shows backstory, flashbacks, and all kinds of stuff. And it is slow, but I appreciate the patience it takes its time with to flesh out the story. I love the theme that it introduces. I love when a story has a theme, and maybe this theme was a bit overstated. It is. Cable says this phrase like so much, it's like they're trying to stuff it down your throat. This is the theme of the show. We made a theme. But the theme is, what are you willing to do to get what you want? That comes into play at the end of the episode when they program Robocop, the criminals reprogram Robocop to kill Cable. And the only way he can kill the actual bad guy is if he gets rid of this directive, and he cannot get rid of this directive to kill his partner. So in order to kill the bad guy, the only way he can get rid of the directive is to complete it. So it's the theme of what are you willing to do to succeed, and Robocop has to kill his partner, and this is an awesome character moment because he has to kill his partner, and then he just starts screaming and killing the other dude, and it's awesome. It's like this great character moment at the end. So that was the part one was pretty cool, but that was just the beginning. Like it functions as its own movie, but then at the same time, it's only the beginning of the story. So at episode 2, and they bring back Cable as Robocable, or Robocop 2. He's black. It's just black armor, which is kind of funny because Cable's a black guy, and they made his armor black, which is Robocop 2, so it has 002 on his thing. But he has 2 sidearms instead of Robocop, who just has 1, so he's like Robocop, but better. So Robocable is brought back to kill Robocop, and first Robocable like goes around and starts killing people, destroying everything, and being extremely strict, like, this is a no parking zone. And he completely destroys the car, rips out the engine, and it makes Robocop look like the bad guy because everyone thinks it's Robocop because there's never been 2 Robocops before. The entire movie is just basically this drawn out action scene of Robocop and Robocable fighting each other. And at the end, they got all these, I don't know, what are they, SWAT teams? And they want to kill both Robocops. Or, no, the original. Because it's like made to say that the original Robocop is the bad guy and he needs to be taken out. And Robocable is on their side. So they go, I think they're policemen, but they go after Robocop. There's this side plot that becomes a main plot in the last 2 episodes, but there's this side plot of these criminals they have electric devices that can shock people with lightning or whatever, and then they also have the ability to turn invisible and go super speed. They're not superheroes or anything, it's just all technology. So this one girl who's the daughter of one of the criminal people, this daughter is trying to help Robocop or something. I can't remember why she's in there, but it's this big fight between the people that want to kill Robocop. Cable is having issues because he's trying to kill his partner, and Robocop is telling him, stop, you need to. And then this little girl is in here for no reason, and then they're trying to kill Robocop. If they continue fire, they're going to kill this little girl. So RoboCop protects her, and it's really cool. And then at the end, Robocable comes to his senses and everything. It's really cool. But Damien is a member of the OCP staff. He is a very cunning person. He's not the smartest villain. Like, he's not like the main ultimate villain of the RoboCop universe or anything, but he is a cunning man. And he wants to make this thing called Saint, which is basically like Neurobrain. It's an entire... I realized I didn't explain what Neurobrain was, but it's this entire AI system that controls the entire power grid of the city. So at the end of the second episode, he ends up using Saint to increase the air pressure and heat in the OCP staff room with all the main people of the OCP, like the chairman, the different people, and they all die, and he basically becomes the new OCP by default, and that's like, that shows you how, like, oh crap, this isn't just a goofy guy, this is an actual villain. So episode 3 is Resurrection. So there's 3 different plot threads that are intersecting here. There's the RoboCop and Robocable, which is the more thematic personal fight, the personal battle, and then they, at this point, they have teamed up together. Then there's Saint, which I just explained, and then there's Legion. Legion, with all these criminal people that can turn invisible and electrocute, they are the Resistance, and they are against this one dude called Dr. Kadick. And Dr. Kadick wants to spread this virus called Legion. And Dr. Kadick and this criminal woman, they were married, and they had a daughter, which this daughter is half cyborg, half human, and that's the little girl that RoboCop tried to protect. So Dr. Kadick is going to use that daughter to upload this virus to the internet, which is going to destroy all technology around the world, but also kill any human. Like, it can go from technology to humans. It infects both of them. So then Dr. Kadick alters Robocable to do what he wants him to do. So he basically makes Robocable his puppet. So episode 4 is Crash and Burn. This is the epic finale where all the plot threads come together. Dr. Kadick is going to use Saint to upload Legion through his daughter. And then RoboCop is trying to get Robocable to stop helping him, and it's all kinds of crazy. And then at the end, Robocable kills RoboCop, like sticks his data spike in the back of his head to shut him off. And this is a very interesting thing, because I always thought of like this big epic RoboCop movie. In RoboCop 3, there's this really cool moment where it says, where he wakes back up and it says, Directive 4 not found, or whatever. I always thought of a RoboCop versus Terminator movie where RoboCop has to use an EMP pulse to take out all of the Terminators. But in doing so, he would have to sacrifice himself. And then when he did that, it would say rebooting, and you would see, and no prime directives found. So then Robocable sticks his data spike in the back of RoboCop's head and shuts him down. And then Robocable, the Resistance woman, kills Dr. Kadick with the virus, but she also dies, and so there's this EMP pulse that RoboCop was going to use, but then they stole it, and then now Robocable is the only person that can use it, so he turns it on, and boom, this giant bubble appears and takes out the whole city, the whole power grid of the city. And so then RoboCop wakes back up, and it says back online, your system online, and then it plays this video that Cable made, and it basically explains the only way the EMP would not affect RoboCop is if he was off. EMPs don't affect things that aren't running. So Robocable basically had to turn Robocop off so he could sacrifice himself and not kill his friend in the process. So that was pretty cool. But then it brings the question of, he could have just explained that the first place, and they just did it for the twist because it's like, because he says some people need to stay dead, and he stabs the power spike into the back of Robocop's head, and it's like, oh no, he's the bad guy killed him, but Robocable, that was his whole plan. But then he could have just explained that. But then there would be an argument like, no, you can't do that. We can find another way. Blah blah blah. So it was good. It was a good twist. I appreciate it. It says list prime directives. No prime directives found. So it was like my perfect RoboCop ending became a reality. So it was pretty cool. So and then he goes off, and then he goes off into the night of the complete chaos because the city's all the power is out. So criminals are running rampant. So RoboCop goes off into the night, and this is pretty good. The only downside to this movie, or this miniseries, is, I gotta be real with you, the different actors they get for RoboCop. Let's just list them off. The different actors they get for RoboCop in the first two movies. Okay, every actor that they get to play RoboCop looks completely fine in human form. The actor they get, they look completely fine in human form, and they look completely fine with their mask on. And all you see is their mouth, right? The actor they get to play the first two RoboCop movies, Peter Weller, looks completely fine in robot form. All of them look completely fine in human form. They look completely fine. They're normal. But Peter Weller, it looks the best. He looks cool. He looks awesome as when they take his mask off. Then there's Robert Burke in RoboCop 3. He kind of has this weird Klingon eyebrow thing going on. His cheeks are sunken in. So yeah, he also looks fine. Not as good as Peter. Peter Weller just looks awesome. Robert Burke looks okay. Then we got Richard Eden for the RoboCop TV series. This dude looks like he has some sort of skin disorder when he's in RoboCop. When they take his thing off, you see his face and it's all like smooth. There's no hairs. It's all like, that's the way it was for all the other RoboCops too, but it looks disgusting, like a plastic skin. He looks depressed all the time. His eyes are red and watery. He just looks like a fish. And then Paige Fletcher, this dude looks normal as a normal human being. I'm not like saying that they're ugly. I'm not like roasting the actors, okay? They look completely normal as humans without all the makeup and the making them RoboCop. I'm just saying that the only one who pulled it off good is Peter Weller. But when you do all this stuff, when Paige Fletcher gets his mask taken off, he looks like, because they're all bald now, and they look weird without hair, and this dude looks so depressed and old and weird with his like 8 head because he's bald. And I know he's like, you're not naturally bald, because when you're bald, when bald people have hair, they look weird, and when people with hair are bald, they look weird. And then on top of that, he's old and he has a weird face shape, and the RoboCop costume doesn't fit him right because they're trying to use the original RoboCop costume for 6-foot Peter Weller on this 5-foot whatever Paige Fletcher, and he looks like a little boy in his dad's suit. And then he's old, and then on top of that, he's like 10 years older than Peter Weller was, and then he actually has eyebrows, and it's just horrible. Like, the RoboCops keep getting uglier. So that's the only thing that I have as a pet peeve of anything but the first two RoboCop movies, is that the RoboCop actors, when they're in I'll just say RoboCop, because the actors are fine. It's just when they're in RoboCop with all that makeup and cyborg crap on them, they look ugly, bro. But RoboCop Prime Directives, it had a good theme. It was long, drawn out. It was emotional. It had good moments. It used all of the RoboCop, the scrapped RoboCop ideas of a RoboCop 2. It used Saint or Neurobrain. It reused that. It used all these stuff to make a very formidable, and then I love how all the plot elements seemed completely random and distant from one another, and then they all went together at the end. And it is a 6-hour movie if you watch it all at once, but to me, this is A tier. It's like the greatest. It's like what RoboCop 3 should have been. It was low budget, but I'm so happy to see them go back to the violent, because it was PG-13 or PG after RoboCop 2. And it's so cool to see RoboCop kill people again. Yes! Like, think about this. I watched RoboCop 1, 2, and 3. He doesn't kill anyone in 3. Or I think he does. He does kill people in 3. I think. But then I watched the original animated series, he doesn't kill people. The TV series, he doesn't kill people. Alpha Commando, he doesn't kill people. And the Prime Directives, this dude explodes. He blows himself up. That's the first thing that happens. I'm like, yeah, people dying, woo! So yeah, I've never been so happy to see people die before. So that was great. So yeah, A tier. Prime Directives, A tier. RoboCop 2014, the remake. Let's tackle the pros first, because it has a lot of cons, a lot of things wrong with this movie. The pros. RoboCop ain't ugly to begin with. The RoboCop they get is completely fine. It is a solid movie. Like, it still maintains the basic theme of the plot of what RoboCop's about. It has a coherent plot to the movie. And the first time I saw the inside of RoboCop with all his lungs and heart and stuff, that was disgusting. That was absolutely rancid. So, like, I'm glad they didn't shy away from not keeping that. Like, they showed it what it was. Like, they didn't give a crap. They showed you RoboCop, all his organs and stuff, just right in there, and it was just gross and nasty. And then he saw himself, and he was like, "Ooh!" and he's like screaming and stuff, and it has emotion too. It has emotion. RoboCop is trying to deal with himself or Alex Murphy. They don't even call him RoboCop. They call the project RoboCop, but they call him Alex Murphy, because I'll get into that in the cons. But Alex Murphy has to deal with his body being changed and what they're doing to him. So it's kind of because he was blown up and all his body parts were useless. He's basically one from Metallica. And what are you going to do? What are you going to do there? Like, OCP isn't even that bad if you're going to just turn him if you want to make him into a cyborg. That's the only way to keep him alive. And it does have a lot of good actors. It has Samuel L. Jackson, who of course has to say an obligatory motherfucker in every movie he's in. And when he says it in this movie, it is forced. It comes off as forced. It has Samuel L. Jackson, has Michael Keaton, who played Batman in the original Batman movies by Tim Burton, and he also played Beetlejuice. It has Gary Oldman, who played who played Jim Gordon from the other Batman movies. It has a lot of good actors in it. Now, this is a very good example of the actors don't make the movie. You cannot just have a movie and shove as much celebrity actors in it as you possibly can and think that it's going to make the movie good. Because this movie's cons heavily outweigh its pros. There's too many good actors. It makes the movie feel like it's too expensive. It's like dudes who are wine tasters, like, oh, I have the most expensive wine for no fucking reason. It's like, if you enjoy Robocop 2014, all you're doing is just, oh, I appreciate expensive movies. And it's like, okay, I don't care. It's too expensive. It loses the character of the original. And there's two reasons it loses the character of the original. First off, it loses the drama part. It is just an action movie. It is just another action movie. You can watch it and be like, oh, that was a cool movie, whatever, I don't care. But watching it in context to what the original Robocop movie was is disgraceful. All that's left is action. I don't even know what was happening towards the end. And the biggest con is it loses the metaphor of Robocop trying to regain his humanity. That's the theme, that's the metaphor, that's the whole point of Robocop. So there's a bunch of different factors that take this metaphor and turn it upside down. There's a bunch of these different factors that lead to Robocop losing its metaphor, this remake. First off, Alex Murphy does not die directly from criminals. That is a main point, that they're cop killers and they kill a cop. That is the whole point of this thing. Second off, he is completely obliterated. All his body, he is one from Metallica. He's the dude from One from Metallica. He's obliterated. He cannot survive unless they turn him into a cyborg. In the original Robocop, they wanted to chop his whole arm off. They're like, oh, we were able to save the arm. Chop it off. We want to make him a cyborg. And then in this one, they saved his hand. One of his hands, it wasn't even his whole arm, it was his hand. They saved his hand and kept his human hand. They were nice to him. All of them were nice to him. So it loses the criminal aspect of it, because the criminals don't directly kill him. They kill him with a car bomb. And then the OCP isn't as ridiculously or satirically corrupt as it is in the movie, which that's what gave it his character. And then OCP are also so nice to him as to not erase his memory, which defeats the purpose of him trying to regain his humanity. Instead, the metaphor, instead of him, Alex Murphy or Robocop, trying to regain his humanity, this movie's metaphor is Alex Murphy trying to deal with his body being altered by OCP. And then he immediately reunites with his family, which is something he never did until later in the Robocop stuff, like in Prime Directives, his son realized who he was, and but then there was also conflict between them, like, why didn't you tell me who you were? And they dealt with that really well. Alex Murphy, the first thing he does is, I need to see my family. I need to see my family. So, of course, a normal human being would want to do that, but then they're like, oh, no, we can't let you see your family right now. Then erase his memory. That's the whole reason they erase his memory, to strip him of all his humanity, which is why OCP was such an evil corporation in the original movie. It doesn't even come off as evil in this remake. And I don't even know what the ending was. I don't remember. I don't care enough to remember. It was like he had to stop the evil OCP guy. And there was so much stuff blowing up, and there was so much needless action in the movie that I completely lost track of the plot. I don't know, maybe I'm just stupid, maybe I'm a dumbass, but this movie seems like a dumbass to me. So the big pivotal reason why I don't like this movie is because it's about Alex Murphy losing his humanity instead of Robocop gaining his humanity. E tier. The reason I'm not putting it at F tier is because if you have no idea what Robocop is and you watch this remake, you will enjoy it as just another action movie. Oh, that was a cool action movie, whatever. But then if you go back to the original Robocop, you're like, holy shit, this is like an actual movie. This is a masterpiece. Like, it has a story, a plot, a theme, good actors that aren't Samuel L. Jackson saying motherfucker to the camera for no reason. Oh, it's Samuel L. Jackson, we gotta get him to say motherfucker. Like, it's just, no, you don't. Honestly, it would be great to see Samuel L. Jackson successfully say motherfucker in a movie. Like in Pulp Fiction. So, you can get Samuel L. Jackson to say motherfucker successfully. But this movie, it was so forced. It was like, oh yeah, say motherfucker just angrily to the camera. In your sentence. Like, the script just says motherfucker. Say motherfucker, I don't know. So, E tier. It wasn't like, if you watch it, it is just another action movie. It's not like an actual bad movie. It's just meh. So E tier. We're not done. We're not done. If you know, you know. Our Robocop Remake 2018. This is on YouTube. You can watch it for free. I wouldn't recommend doing so, however, if you are easily grossed out. Even if you're not easily grossed out. This is just a whole nother level of what the fuck am I watching. So this is from the good era of YouTube before all this political correctness on YouTube started. The good era of YouTube did a giant collaboration where they gave each person a scene from RoboCop and they said, make it. You have everything from musicals to stop motion animation. It goes all over the place. So it's such a great, very entertaining experience. It was so self-aware that it was shit, but it actually tried to fulfill its comedic purposes while being self-aware that it was shit. That is what I love about when you make your movie purposely shit and you try to make it shit and you try but you know it's shit and you still try anyway. That is awesome. I love that. There are bare ass titties, like they show whole titties, like nudity. There are full on naked women. And if you're like, how the hell is this allowed on YouTube at this point when I'm describing this? That's not even the worst of it. The worst of it. Scene 27. If you're a RoboCop fan, you probably have heard about Scene 27. There's a scene in the original RoboCop movie where RoboCop is about to, there's this dude sexually assaulting a woman and he holds her at knife point and she has a dress, and RoboCop uses his ultimate aiming skills to shoot through the dress and hit him in the dick, and it doesn't show anything, it's just, oh my dick, and they redo that scene and it's fine. And then another dude comes out with his dick hanging out, and they use effects. They use like silicone. I don't know what they're using. Silicone molds of dicks or whatever. But RoboCop, there's like a bunch of sexual. There has to be 100 dudes coming out with their own woman that they're attacking, and they each have their own dick hanging out, which is a fake. It's a fake dick. I don't know if they actually. the way this thing is, they could actually probably have had their real penis hanging out of their pants. But when Robocop shoots it, it's like a montage of fake. It's not CGI, it's practical effects, so it looks real. It's like silicone models of dicks exploding. And it looks so real. And it's just the most disturbing thing I've seen in my life. And then it keeps going, and there's like this army of sexual predators, each with their own female hostage. And all the female hostages are played by dudes, by the way. And then it gets worse and worse, and it doesn't end. And then at the end, you have this completely naked, like, fat dude standing in the middle of the street, and he's just shaking. And then Robocop blows his dick up anyway. I'm like, what am I... On a lighter note, my favorite part is, it only gets better after that. Like, towards the end of the movie, it gets better. When Robocop sticks his data spike out and stabs it in the computer, in this remake, it's a dildo. It's a silver dildo, and he sticks it in, and then he sticks it in and twists it like in the movie. But in this remake, is a whole dildo attached to his arm, and then he looks at the camera and smiles. But the way he smiles reminds me of when Michael Keaton in the Batman movies, when he smiled. It reminds me of that face so much, and it's like the best part of that movie. And then the musical stop motion part was really cool, and it was funny, and it was cool, and it was talented, but they tracked their human faces onto the stop motion thing, which made it a little weird, but it was an interesting style, and it was pretty cool. And then during the climactic action sequence where Emil comes out of the toxic waste thing, they do this Pink Floyd On the Run, like they do the beginning of The Dark Side of the Moon. They do that, and it's so trippy, and there's colors flashing, and Emil just explodes, and he meets God, and it's so weird, but it's great. And then there's this after-credit scene, or mid-credit scene, with all the bloopers, and then at the end, you see like this dude in a morph suit of the Robocop remake Robocop, like the 2014 Robocop. Like, ew, get out of here. Like, he's eating food out of a garbage can. And the one thing I forgot to mention about the 2014 Robocop movie was the unmasking. He has a flip up visor on his helmet. So you can see his face right off the bat. Like, you don't even get an epic reveal, and he just looks normal because he's still Alex Murphy. So, but the Robocop remake did a great job of parodying Robocop, being faithful to Robocop, scarring me mentally. It did such a great job of what it wanted to do, and for that, S tier. But I wouldn't recommend watching it. 10 out of 10, wouldn't recommend. Skipped scene 27. To be honest, scene 27 is the only one that I was like, but, you know, you had this dude smoking crack off of these girls' titties. They're bare titties. And there was more nudity and gore than in this remake than there was in the original Robocop. And this is still on YouTube. Thank you for your cooperation.